You're listening to the Synergy Leadership Podcast, a discussion with engaging, empowering, and enlightening leaders about the greatest competitive advantage in business and entrepreneurship that often goes unrecognized: a team's energy. Here's your host, the woman who puts the energy in synergy, Karen R. Jenkins.
Hello, and welcome to this segment of the Synergy Leadership Podcast. I am so excited to be joined by a very special guest and friend, Jean-Cecil Frick, who is the Vice President of NP Strategies. Jean-Cecil has a varied background and brings a lot of experience to the table. And I'm not even going to belabor this. I'm just going to jump right in. And Jean-Cecil, if you would just introduce yourself and give our audience a little bit of flavor of who you are and your background.
Well, thank you, Karen. I've been looking forward to having this conversation with you, and I am pleased to say that Karen has become a friend of mine over the past few years through our shared service on the board of the Columbia Chamber of Commerce. And I have called Columbia home for the last decade. I moved back to South Carolina in 2012 after starting my career in Washington, D.C. I was the kid who loved reading the front page of the newspaper and wanting to know what was the latest news and going on in the world. And so I had the opportunity to move to Washington after I graduated from college. And what I thought was just a dream became a reality because I moved up there to work for someone who had just won a Senate seat in South Carolina. And so I got to play a part in opening their Senate office. And someone gave me the advice when I moved to DC that if you put your head down, do good work, and don't care about who gets the credit, you will go places. And that stood out to me from day one. And I'm not sure what took me forward, but somehow I landed in the White House working for President George W. Bush. I was part of his administration for a little over 2 years, serving both Vice President Cheney in his legislative affairs office, and then eventually moved into the White House, serving as a Senate liaison for President Bush. And I stayed in the Bush administration through the end of their term in 2009. And as many will recall, in 2008, the economy crashed. And so 2009, I was out of a job regardless. And I knew that I had to look for my next step. And I was fortunate to have developed a mentor early on in my career. And when it was time for me to seek another job, my mentor ended up creating a job for me in the company that she was working with and still works with today. But she knew that I was someone she could trust as a team member. And I'm forever indebted to the fact that I was able to easily transition into a new role. And I took a job as a communications specialist for a global company, Boston Scientific. And I was able to take both my government experience and contribute and bring that to the table with corporate experience. And so that was my first look into the corporate world. And so when I moved to DC in 2005, I never imagined that my career would take off the way that it did. And I thought I'd only be there a few years, but thankfully I was able to grow in my career and new opportunities presented themselves. But we entered, 2010, 2011, 2012, and literally South Carolina was chugging on my heart. And I decided in 2012 that it was time for me to move back. And took a leap of faith to leave DC, where I had had a really good career, and literally start anew in South Carolina, and haven't looked back since. So as I mentioned, I've been in Columbia for the past decade. And one thing that really drove me to pick Columbia was that I wanted to be able to make a difference in the community. You often hear you can be a big fish in a small pond, or you can just be one of many. I am certainly not a big fish in this pond, but South Carolina has been home to me. I was born and raised here, and I wanted to take the experience I'd had in DC and bring it back to a community where hopefully I could try and make a difference directly in that community. And so I am extremely grateful for the opportunities that have been presented to me in Columbia, relationships I've formed, business opportunities that I've had. And I think at the end of the day, I've been able to see the success I've had because of that same mentality. I put my head down, I try to do good work, and I don't care who gets the credit. I just want to see good things move forward for the benefit of all.
You are such a phenomenal woman, Jean-Cecil, and at such an early age to have been so impactful in not only DC, but in the Columbia area as well. One of the things I did not mention during your introduction is that you are currently serving as the chair of the Columbia Chamber of Commerce. I think that speaks volumes for you, for your experience, and for everything that you bring to the table. So we thank you for your service. And you said, I may not be the biggest fish in the pond, but you are an impactful fish. One of my mentors, Dr. Lewis Lynn, says that it's important for all of us to pay our civil rent. And you have done a phenomenal job in paying your civil rent. So as we look back at your history, your journey of success, one of the things you mentioned was you got back to Columbia because of mentor that you had. Share with us, in your opinion, how important is it for someone in a leadership role, someone that is striving to go into a leadership role, how important is it for you to have a mentor? And what did that mean and do for you?
Karen, I appreciate you asking that question because I think a mentor can have such a tremendous role and an impact in someone's life. And a mentor, it's certainly been that way in mine. And I am blessed to have many friends and loved ones in my life. But there is a small circle of people that are my mentors in the sense that I go to them when I need advice and need their trusted opinion. And so a mentor can literally change someone's career trajectory. And for me, early in my career, my mentor played a role just by believing in me and encouraging me, letting me know that I was providing value to the team. And so that encouraged me, and it let me know these are the things to move forward on, because she's letting me know these are good things, keep doing them. But then she'd also let me stub my toe in certain instances so that I could learn from it. I was just having a conversation with a colleague today about a situation where hindsight was 2020. And I wish that I had approached it a little bit differently. And I didn't discuss the situation with a mentor to get outside perspective. But the point of me mentioning that is that always in your career, you want to be continuing to grow. So there may be things that you wish you had done better, but you're not growing if you're not willing to recognize it and approach things differently in the future. And so at this point in my career, I do have the opportunity to be a manager. And one of the things that I really try to hone in with my colleagues is that I have an open door policy. I want to be approachable. I want to know about the things that drive you in your life, what drives you at work, what drives you at home, who are you as an individual as a whole. And so I think that part of being a mentor is understanding the goals of someone, how you can help move them forward in their path to achieve those goals. And ultimately, a mentor is someone that you trust has your best interest at hand. that it's not self-serving from their end, but that they are truly invested in your growth and success. And as a manager today, I can tell you I'm invested in the growth and success of every team member that I get to work with. And so it's important to me as their manager that I also be their mentor. I want to be approachable and have an open door policy where they know they can come to me for an unbiased opinion, and knowing that the advice I'm giving them is with their best interest in mind. And I think ultimately that's what a mentor does. They encourage you, they help you see things in yourself that you may not see. And for the listeners today, I would just tell you that I've been lucky to have Karen Jenkins as a mentor in the past 2 years. She and I have developed a relationship over coffee every few months. And what started out as a friendship has become a mentorship. And so that just goes to show that it doesn't matter where you are in your career, you can always seek new mentors and continue to build those relationships.
And I'll say this too, because I think some people think, well, if you are the mentor and you are the mentee, I learned just as much from you as you learn from me. And I really believe in the adage that iron sharpens iron. Right. And you definitely bring the iron. So again, I thank you for that. So share with the audience some of a few tips on how to go about obtaining a mentor. You know, in the work environment, such as yourself, you serve as a mentor to your team members. Every manager doesn't think that way. I wish they did. But if I'm looking for a mentor outside of, or even within my organization, give some tips of how some of our listeners might be able to go out and find and approach someone to be their mentor.
Great. So I think your mentor can be internal. It can be someone that you work with. And in most situations, it may not directly be your manager. It may be a colleague whose work you value. It may be a colleague whose position is something that you're aspirational towards. But I think at the end of the day, when seeking a mentor, it's got to be someone that you look up to and you respect their opinion. And so if you're looking at a mentor within your organization, it can be, it doesn't necessarily have to be someone who has a more senior role within the organization. I think that can often be a misconception that it's got to be someone in a leadership position. A mentor is someone who simply has your best interest in mind and is looking to help guide you. And so a mentor can simply be the colleague that you go to lunch with every Tuesday and talk about what's going on. And you might be sharing a frustration from work, and they're helping you see things in a new light, or they're helping bring the situation, they're helping you solve what may be a crisis to you. They're just helping provide more perspective. And so mentors can come in many different forms within the workplace. And sometimes, I would say 9 out of 10 times, it's not an organized relationship. It's not saying, will you please be my mentor? It's something that just forms naturally, where there's a trust, an admiration, and respect between two people, where they are seeking to help see the others grow. And if you're looking at a mentor outside of your workplace, say you're seeking someone within the community, you can't just pick someone off the street and say, I'd like to learn more from that person. I think the way I would encourage someone who's seeking a mentor that they may not have a relationship with today, but say they've read articles about them, or they know they're going to be speaking at an event, try to put yourself in that room where you know that individual is going to be, and try to strike up a conversation with them and say, I'd love to meet you for coffee one day, or could we grab lunch one day? And try to find ways to be with that person and see if the dialogue forms and you're able to share things with one another. And throughout my career, I have found that my mentors have just come naturally through relationships that have been formed. It not necessarily something I was seeking out, but I think seeking a mentor is recognizing that you don't have all the answers, and that getting input from others is valuable. And so anyone that is passionate about their career, someone who's looking to grow in their career, I strongly recommend having a mentor.
So one of the things that I think you do an excellent job of, and actually it's two components of what I'm about to share. Business and success comes as a relation in the form of relationships. One thing I learned early on, it's not who you know, it's who knows you. And I think you've done an exceptional job of serving our community, particularly in making connections with and for businesses in our Columbia community. So talk to us a little bit about the importance of relationships, and you kind of talked about it from the mentorship perspective, but also from the perspective of being able to be a successful business owner or a successful leader in the community when it comes to relationships.
So Karen, to me, relationships are everything, and in business and in your personal life. And so relationships are ultimately what drive me every day. I want to do well for other people because I want them to be able to be successful, and it may not be because of something I've done, but if I can help along the way, I want to. And so I have found that my entire career has been built off of relationships. I have been fortunate to never have to submit a resume for a job. It's always been someone approaching me because they've known me and they've wanted to start a conversation. And so if you don't feel like you have strong relationships professionally, I would encourage you to get engaged and start to form relationships, because I was about to use the word synergy, Karen, but I'm going to hold that.
You may introduce it now. Yes.
But relationships allow you to create a synergy and to learn from one another and to help one another. And if we're talking about the Columbia Chamber of Commerce, we are the unified voice for business in Columbia. We seek to grow a business-friendly environment in Columbia. Well, the Columbia Chamber of Commerce exists because no one company can do that together. We know that collectively we have a stronger voice and we can make a greater impact. And so ultimately, that's driven by relationships. And so relationships are just so important in an individual's life. And it's almost, I'm so passionate about it that I don't even know how to talk about it. But I think at the end of the day, you're able to form strong relationships by being true to yourself and being true to who you are. So what I mean by that is be trusted. Do what you say you're going to do. When you have a conversation with someone and they ask for it to be a confidential conversation, keep it confidential. That's how you develop that trust. And so you can earn a reputation based off of how you treat people. And so how you treat people is so important. And, we've all heard the saying where someone may forget what you said, but they'll never forget the way you made them feel. And that is something that's really important to me because I may not be always eloquent in my words, but I want someone to walk away from a conversation with me feeling warmth, authenticity, and the desire that they can go do it. They are a valued human being who can go make a difference. And so I'm pivoting from relationships a little bit, but I think at the end of the day, having strong relationships is so important because it feeds you. It allows you to learn from others and ultimately grow.
That is so powerful. And I see that woven in who you are. And one thing I will say about you is you're one of the most authentic people I've met. And I can't say that about everybody, but your authenticity, you exude it. You exude the true nature of who you are. And I'm glad you brought up the word synergy. You know, our platform is Synergy Leadership. And to me, synergy is the ability for you to leverage your energy, recognize first, right? Being aware of the energy that you bring into the room, recognizing your energy, but also recognizing the energy of your team and your relationships and your connections, and figuring out how you synergize or combine all of that energy together to be able to achieve ultimate results. And that ultimate result might be you helping someone else. It might be providing a service to a client. You know, one of the things that, you know, people say, and it's true, is that when you talk about business, people do business with the people that they know, they like, and they trust. So what better platform to start building that community to introduce yourself to work in, then, especially if you're a business, then the chamber. So share with us, and you've hit a couple of them, but maybe there are a couple of more. If there's a business out there looking to make connections in the community or to grow their business, share with us how they could come into the Columbia Chamber of Commerce and benefit from it. Because at the end of the day, we always want to get a return on our investment. We always want to make sure that, you know, when we spend, and that investment might not necessarily be money, it could be time, right? But we want to make sure that we get that return. What would you recommend to a business that wanted to or needed to, I think they really need to, in my personal opinion, need to connect with an organization such as the Chamber?
Great. Thanks for asking that question, Karen, because I, even during my time in DC, I was involved with the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. I've been involved with the South Carolina Chamber of Commerce, and today I am very much involved with the Columbia Chamber of Commerce. And I think that chambers of commerce provide a really unique opportunity for its membership. And when it comes to the Columbia Chamber of Commerce, I really think there are 3 pillars to look at when it comes to how to engage with the chamber and what it can provide you. And this can be for a small business, it can be for a medium-sized business, it can be for a large business. So the chamber is really a voice for all sizes. I do want to emphasize that. But the first pillar is education. And so the chamber provides many opportunities to come to informational sessions, whether it's about finance or HR or marketing. Every month, we are hosting different breakout sessions with business leaders to communicate directly with chamber partners on specific topics. So you can have education regarding ways to run your business or grow your business, but then you also have the education side of what's happening in Columbia. So the first Tuesday of every month, the Columbia Chamber hosts an issues forum, and that is where we invite government or business leaders from within the community to come speak to our chamber partners. They have the opportunity to directly ask questions. Examples of folks that have come to our issues forums are local elected officials. The mayor has presented. We've hosted the city manager, the county manager. We've hosted the sheriff, the chief of police, the attorney general. I can go on and on and on, but the chamber is providing that forum for community members to learn directly from their elected officials. And so that's a very valuable thing. because as we all know, elected officials can ultimately, and their decisions can ultimately impact our day-to-day life, not only personally, but also professionally, which leads me to the second pillar, which is advocacy. So if you are running a business, you know that there can be ordinances put out, laws made that can ultimately impact the way you do business. And there's no way you can keep track of all that's going on, especially if you're a small business owner. And so the Columbia Chamber, or any chamber, can serve as your voice with these elected officials on how different ordinances and laws can impact the business. And they serve as your advocate with these elected officials to be educated on how decisions they make can ultimately impact the business community. And so that's an ROI that you don't always see, because the goal is usually to prevent something from happening when it comes to advocacy. But that is something that from a day-to-day standpoint, a chamber is always working on. And then the third pillar is really what I think most people think of when it comes to a chamber of commerce, and that's the networking opportunities. So Karen, you and I have been talking about the importance of relationships, and so many of the relationships that I value today, 10 years after having restarted my career in Columbia, are through the Chamber of Commerce. And so the networking opportunities are endless, and they can, we host monthly events, whether it's a happy hour, whether it's a breakfast. And then one other thing that really, I guess I would make a fourth pillar, is exposure for your company. So the Chamber of Commerce can support you in a grand opening. They would gladly show up for a ribbon cutting and share that across with all chamber members. It provides you opportunities to have access to their website and promote deals for your business, and gives you opportunities to promote your business through social media channels. So I could go on and on, but those really are the four main pillars that I see of an ROI of being involved with the Columbia Chamber of Commerce. And for me personally, not having grown up in this community, I grew up in the upstate of South Carolina, and Columbia was new for me in 2012. I had friends here, but I didn't know the business community. And I credit my involvement with Columbia Chamber in helping grow who I am as a professional because of the network it's been able to provide me. And one last thing before we go off this topic, Karen, but as with anything that you engage with, you get out what you put in. And so you can, if you just write a check to the Columbia Chamber of Commerce, I'm going to admit that you're not going to see a huge ROI. You need to choose to engage, participate in the events, join a committee if that's a passion, show up for the issues forums and ask our elected officials questions. There are so many different ways you can engage. And again, the Columbia Chamber is meant to be the voice of many when it comes to businesses. And so they can only be your voice when you're engaged and when you're telling them what is impacting you, what are your needs.
That is so phenomenal in your approach, but also very true. You know, one of the things that you mentioned early on, as far as one of your mantras, was serving others. And when it comes to getting a return on your investment, it really is about how can I serve? How can I join the chamber or any other trade association that you're going to get involved with? It's not about, and I had to learn this the hard way. I have joined other organizations and was on the roster. You know, I wrote the check, but as far as return on investment, I got none because the only thing that I invested was the check. It's work. It's how can I serve? How can I help the organization better help me and help other people? And once you take on that mindset, it's not a one for one. I mean, you're not, and I can tell that you are truly authentic and have been blessed by this, because you are doing this selflessly to be a help to others. And then automatically the universe just turns around and blesses you back. Not because you move the water, but because that is just your spirit. So I thank you for that. And thank you for sharing with our audience. As we get ready to come to a close, there are a couple of questions that I typically ask my guests. And one of them is, of everything that you've experienced on your leadership journey, what are you most proud of?
So Karen, my response to that is not going to surprise you based off of what we've been talking about, but I am most proud of the relationships I've formed. So I have, my career has included several different roles. Being in DC, it is not uncommon to change jobs every couple of years. And so along the way, I have had the opportunity to work with some really incredible people. And what I'm most proud of is the relationships that I've formed along the way and that continue to stay with me today. So growing up, I can remember my parents always saying, never burn a bridge. You always want to be about bridge building. And so when I look at where I am today, I've just been building this bridge and building this network of friends and contacts where at the end of the day, I'm pretty confident that if I were to call them, they'd take my call. And so I'm proud of that. And I'm proud of the fact that many former colleagues still call on me today as a mentor. And as we've discussed, relationships are really important to me. And so the fact that I'm able to carry those out brings a lot of joy to me.
That is really indicative of the person that I know. And that is truly who you are. And you're walking results that your methodology works. It really does work with all the contacts that you've made. So my final question is, if you could give one piece of leadership advice to our listeners, what would that be?
So my advice is to be a listener. When you come to the table, be open-minded and willing to listen to every voice in the room. I learned in DC, so I will give one little anecdote that my mentor shared with me, that she learned from Vice President Cheney, who was, it's been several years since he was in office, but it was a piece of advice he gave that has always stuck with me, and it ties in with being a good listener, is to never cut off your sources of information. So in other words, as a leader, if someone is presenting information to you, act as though it's the first time you've heard it. You may have heard it already, but if you make that person feel like they have brought you really valuable information, they're going to continue to bring you information. And so that's what I mean by never cutting off your sources of information, because information is power. And so if you show as a leader that you are a good listener and that the input from others matter, I think you set a really good example.
That is phenomenal. And there's so many people, I mean, out of habit, somebody comes to say something to you or share information. Oh yeah, I already know that.
Exactly.
Then they begin to think, oh, well, I don't need to tell her next time or him next time because they already know. That is some phenomenal and outstanding advice. And I'll be sure to share that with my team so that they recognize that as well. So I thank you again for taking time out of your busy schedule and sharing this plethora of information that you've shared with us today. I hope that I can count on you to come back, because I know we've only touched the surface of all of the information that you have within you to potentially share with our audience. So thank you again for joining us. And to our audience, thank you again for being here with us. You know, we focus on synergy leadership. If you want more information on synergy leadership, please visit our website at www.krjconsulting.com. And you have access to a free, no-cost synergy leadership assessment that we'll be happy to deliver to you and provide you with some information on how you can best leverage your energy and the energy of others around you. Have a wonderful day. Until next time, this is Karen. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for listening to the Synergy Leadership Podcast with Karen R. Jenkins. If you like what you heard today, please subscribe, rate, review, and share our show. See you next time.